Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to Listen Up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Listen Up. Thank you for joining me again on another game recap video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always. Couple of notes before we get into this game recap. It was another UConn Huskies win over Providence. Me and Phil both are a little under the weather right now. As you can see, Phil unable to join me again for this video. I think he will be back with me next week for those videos, but trying to power through this one for you guys today. Hopefully my voice holds up pretty good. Ice Brady also remained out for today's video, and she did not warm up with the team either. So like I said in the last check-in video, hopefully we'll receive more news on that throughout this week as we progress forward. Obviously, Ice Brady, not as much, not as much impact on the team as maybe we thought she would have this season, but nonetheless, she is a pretty important bench player for this team, so hopefully she can return pretty soon to the team. But let's get into the game recap for today. And how about Caitlin Chen scoring the first 7 points for UConn? I know it was a disappointing performance for her as well against Tennessee. So a nice little bounce back game from her today, especially in that first quarter to kind of start UConn off, get them settled into the game, taking it back taking it, scoring into her own hands. We saw UConn break out the press, but unlike the last game where Providence really struggled against that, they had a lot of turnovers against the UConn full court press. Providence did a good job today getting it across the line. But just like we see in a lot of these Big East games, the Huskies apply so much pressure on defense, their man-to-man defense. Providence had a hard time just getting a shot off. But as the quarter progressed, the Friars did a nice job staying calm, letting the play develop. I also noticed the Huskies missing a couple layups again, a couple bunnies, open shots, too many of those again in today's game. So definitely something to improve on still moving forward. Ashlyn Shade came into the game, scored 8 points, helping the Huskies grow their lead to 23-9 after one quarter of play. Huskies continued their hot streak from the field, and this time it was Paige Bueckers that got it going. Providence went almost 4 minutes without scoring, and as I talked about in the last check-in, Friars needed to hit some threes in this game if they wanted to keep it close at all. They were just 2 of 12 in the first half from three, not the winning formula that the Friars needed. UConn was up 40-16 at the half. And it's kind of what we expected, right? We all kind of expected it was going to be one of those types of games again, another Huskies blowout. But if you guys watched the game, I don't know if you guys felt this or not. UConn could have definitely played better. I mean, they were up by 24 points, but they're still not at their peak potential. It feels like they can definitely get a lot better. It's still a huge lead, but it just felt like they could have played better in that half, and definitely still some things to improve on before we get to March. UConn played great team defense today, as they usually do. Providence did show some fight at times during the second half, but the Huskies just had too much for them to deal with. Providence only 4 of 24 from three today, only shot about 27% from the field, and leading scorer Grace Efosa just 2 of 14 with 7 points. And on top of all of that, the Friars had a total of 25 turnovers. So it was much like the first meeting between these two teams. Providence just not able to get much going. Efosa struggled again, way too many turnovers. 3-point shooting abysmal from the Friars. So not the game they wanted in front of their home crowd in Rhode Island. Huskies very dominant again. Azzi Fudd caught fire in the third quarter. She really struggled to get anything going in that first half, but I was glad to see that she turned it around. Azzi made 5 threes, actually ended with 17 points. Much of that again coming in that third quarter. I thought the offense as a whole could have been a little better today. A couple missed layups, as I mentioned, but the 3-point shooting was a highlight for the Huskies. 11 of 24 from outside. Final score 77-40. And we talked about that as well. The Huskies needed to improve from the 3-point line. They did that today. 11 of 24 is pretty good. That's about their average. Makes around 12 a game, I think, in terms of 3-pointers made. So, that's what they need to do moving forward in all these games. Going into March, they need to keep that number at about 10 to 12 threes made per game. Very efficient. That's going to help them down the stretch tremendously. But we'll go ahead and get into a couple comments here before I head out. First comment we will go to from Yolanda McKay. They said, Phil and Rye, have you been reading narratives from mainly SEC fans that they suspect Sarah will transfer if the team doesn't reach the Final Four or at least the Elite Eight? What are your thoughts? I feel she may if UConn doesn't bring in more athletic players the next 2 years. Yeah, I have seen that around the around the web, if you will. I hope not. I definitely hope, all of us hope that she doesn't transfer. Hopefully, she stays all 4 years here at UConn. Of course, another solid game from her today as well. But yeah, it's interesting. I feel like with, NIL and how popular the transfer portal is, you never really know with any player that you bring in. They could transfer at any time, any moment after any season. But I think obviously Sarah is going to be kind of the backbone after this season of play. After Paige and a couple other players leave, and Aubrey, possibly Azzi after this season. So and Caitlin Chen as well, being a graduate student. So definitely losing a couple big players from this team, and Sarah Strong is definitely going to be in line for a very, very important role her next, hopefully, 3 years on the team. But, hopefully UConn has a solid, strong finish to the end of the season. Obviously, the goal is the national championship, but, hopefully Sarah doesn't transfer at any of these seasons, and hopefully she can lead UConn to a title up there in stores. But next comment we'll go to from Jeanette Adams. They said, best to make modifications now rather than at the end of the regular season. It is now obvious that playing primarily in the Big East is a deterrent in preparing for end of the season. Nothing they can do about that but learn on the fly. Yeah, I agree with that. That's kind of but what we've been saying for most of the season. Can't control the opponents in the Big East. Still have a big game coming up against Creighton. Creighton's 20-4. So, I think a lot of these teams in the Big East, just like Providence today, they're not a bad team by any means. They have a senior filled starting five, and they have a great coach. And they're not really a bad team at all, but they have had their struggles for this season. Marquette's another team that's pretty solid, but I just think when you look at UConn, we have so many athletic players here, so many great players. It's hard for these teams to compete at the level that UConn plays at. Just the aggressiveness that they bring, especially in that, every first quarter or first half. And that's why UConn is able to build these really big leads in the first half. Just these teams don't have enough to keep up with UConn. Final comment we'll get into from T.I. Jordan. They said, I wonder if Aubrey should be starting at this point. She needs to play more than 15 minutes a game. Yeah, I mentioned that about a month ago or so when she returned, I believe. Interesting today, she didn't play at all, so I wonder if Gino's kind of holding her back perhaps for the bigger games. Maybe she'll just play in the game against South Carolina, maybe at Creighton, and then, hopefully all the games in March. Didn't see anything about her being injured or having a setback of any kind. So, maybe Gino just resting her up and making sure Aubrey's 100% as we get down to the final stretch of games here. But, I don't know if she should start. I mean, the starting lineup's been the same for the past month and a half, 2 months now that we've gotten everybody back from injury and fully healthy, that this team can get. But I don't think Aubrey should start. I don't think she is. I think Gino is going to keep the starting lineup the same as it's been, like I said, the past 2 months here. And I just think if Aubrey can get 15 minutes off the bench and have the game that she had against Tennessee in every game that she hopefully plays in March, that's all the Huskies can ask for. And it's definitely going to go a long way to help them win some of these games. But that's going to do it for me again. Final score 77-40. Another Huskies blowout win against another Big East opponent. Again, thank you guys for the support. Thanks for joining me. And me and Phil will be back next week for the last check-in against St. John's as the Huskies return home for that matchup. But until then, it's been Rye on Listen Up, and I will see you guys later.